Another problem that we seem to have, is housing.
Yes.
How do we go about developing a sustainable and effective mortgage system in order to deal with the housing deficit?
Okay. I was chairman of the Federal Mortgage Bank from 2002 to 2007. And we tried to make it a mortgage-based system. Now, to do mortgaging, one of the fundamental requirements is that there must be a large pool of long-term savings. That was what confronted General Babangida when he was trying to promote housing, and found that there was no large pool of long-term savings. So he had to say, okay, every worker earning more than 3,000 naira a month must contribute 2.5% of his income to what was called the National Housing Fund. Okay. And hopefully, if they didn't want mortgage, when they leave service, they can collect their money. But it would have been there long enough to provide this pool of long-term savings. But when I became chairman of the Federal Mortgage Bank, all we met there was 30 billion naira. Now, 30 billion naira can hardly produce 5,000 houses. If you say a house is just 5 million for the workers. So I had to go to President Obasanjo and said, you know, if you're serious about this housing, you also asking me to help you look into, you must create a large pool of long-term savings. He says, how? I said, pension, contributory pension. That's one money nobody, after you've been starting to contribute, you don't go back there and say, give me my money tomorrow. In most countries, that's the money that backs up housing and infrastructure. But it's not money that is there for government just to go and say, it's my money. They have to approach it through the capital market, in which, in fact, it's like a bond. But it's a bond which not only the government, but even every level of government, including the city.
Because there's a lot of pressure mounting on the Pension Commission to make available for infrastructure development this big pool of money that I talked about. Is that the only way we can protect the pension fund from being plundered?
The pension fund is people's pension for their, okay. The reason they have to go through the capital market is really because the capital market has a very stringent set of rules for you to, in fact, the pension fund will now come as an institutional investor in whatever you're doing, and they'll buy your bonds. And in that buying your bonds, there are things you have to do, the guarantees you have to sign that that money will be repaid through your own bank. When you buy a house, and I give you, I'm the primary mortgage institution, and I lend you the money, I must go to a secondary mortgage institution to borrow the money to pay the owner of the house full and let him, and then I am the one paying back on a monthly basis. So a lot of things happen once you really start a mortgage system in which everybody knows that the mortgage repayment is the first charge on your income. Otherwise, you'll be thrown out.
I've heard you express concern about all the land reclamation going on in Lagos. What gives you the greatest concern, and how can we ameliorate it? Because it is ongoing. It's not likely to stop anytime soon.
In 1896, we had problem getting ships to come into the Lagos port. We then decided what to do. We know the reason was because there was a sandbar at the mouth of the lagoon. We had to dredge that bar so that ship can go in, and the fatalities we were having from ship getting stuck on the sandbar. Okay, so we built groins, the west end, the east end, and we now had the channel. Ship can come into Lagos. What happened? On the west side of it, sand started to accumulate. On the east side, what used to be a bar beach, you know, erosion started to happen. And suddenly we found that houses we were building almost right to the ocean were just collapsing, and the wave were washing them away. And the bar beach has disappeared. Okay. Now we think we can sand fill and extend the land into the ocean, which is what we're trying to do in the Atlantic City. Of course, some of the consequences of that would not be immediately obvious. And so we might enjoy the freedom of our technological capabilities for some years. But we don't know what we really displace. Now, I'm trying to show that this is not to say we can't exercise our God-given technological capabilities. If we disturb in nature, nature has a way of coming back at us.
I have once heard you talk about the legacy of the oil boom era and how it has left the nation with an expensive and dysfunctional governance system. How can the nation get itself out of this morass by looking at its own rich historical and cultural experience in governance?
Well, it's a tough job because it needs a leader that is committed to getting us back to the right track. You see, when we were making all that money from oil, wiser countries than ourselves were saying that money shouldn't be consumed. It should be allowed to grow so that we can deal with our infrastructure, we can deal with any challenges the future brings to us, and so on. So they created what they call a sovereign wealth fund. But the fundamental resource for any government is the resources you garner from the people who say, come and rule us. So until we get back to that, at all levels, that the towns are meant to provide a significant part of their revenue, that doesn't mean they can't have subvention from higher level, but a situation in which that subvention becomes something a small clique of people you call your councillors can share, that's only because you didn't contribute anything to it. So until we take our governance in our own hands as a people, and not just allow any group, however important they think they are, we really don't seem to know what's going on around us. We're just living from day to day, and our leaders are busy stealing our money.
Professor Akin Mabogunje, we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
And we thank you for watching. Please join us next time when the program returns. But between now and then, let's continue our conversation online at channelstv.com, and do tweet me your thoughts at MoreDailySY. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.